Welcome back to Simply Holistic. Dr. Tony here. We're going to talk more about tumors, but this time we're going to touch on heart tumors. Hang on. Should have grabbed this a minute ago, but we got it here now. Heart tumors. Did you know there could be such a thing? Okay, so let's talk about this. Cardiac tumor. Cardiac tumors are growths that can develop in many different parts of the heart. Remember, a tumor is just a growth of tissue that shouldn't be there. So growths that can develop in many different parts of your heart. Primary heart tumors begin in your heart, may be cancerous or non-cancerous. Metastatic heart tumors develop in cancer spreads to your heart from elsewhere in the body. Let's get a little deeper into this. Okay, overview. Cardiac tumors. Also called heart tumors are growths that form in your heart. Just tissue that should not normally be there. That's all a tumor is. They can be either benign, non-cancerous, or malignant, cancerous. Some are harmless or easily treatable. Others can be fatal. In general, an early diagnosis can lead to prompt treatment. Okay. They range in size and shape. Some are pedunculated, meaning they grow on a stalk. For example, take that off there a minute. So for example, this is actually not going to work with, there we go, started to, okay. For example, they grow on a stalk. There'd be a piece of tissue that would extend down from the tissue in the heart, from the tissue, a piece of tissue that extends down from the natural tissue. It grows, that's your stalk, and then there's a tumor on it. Say it again. Here's the heart wall. Say there's a piece of tissue that grows out from the heart wall into the cavity of your heart where the blood's going. And on that stalk, a tumor grows. That's a pedunculated tumor. Heart tumors may be smaller than 1 centimeter in diameter or as big as 15 centimeters. Their size and location within your heart impact your symptoms and need for treatment. Or the different types of cardiac tumors. There are many types of cardiac tumors. Doctors classify them based on how they develop. Heart tumors that begin in your heart rather than spreading from another part of your body to your heart are called primary heart tumors. Primary are usually non-cancerous, but are sometimes cancerous. Really? Okay, so remember the usually non-cancerous, and they begin in the heart. So it's just a growth of tissue that should not be there, but for some reason, your body got the signal to grow that clump of tissue where it shouldn't be. So to treat that, we get the body to send the signal to undo that growth. Make sense? Okay. When cancer elsewhere in the body spreads to the heart, these tumors are called metastatic. Metastatic heart tumors are always cancerous because they result from cancer that's already in your body. All right, so non-cancerous primary heart tumors. About 75 to 95% of all primary heart tumors are non-cancerous. That should give you some relief. But they can still be dangerous if they interfere. Here's the thing. They can still be dangerous if they interfere with your heart function and can not compose and can pose a risk of stroke if left untreated. So you've got the heart wall, and if the body sends a signal to the heart to grow tissue out here where it shouldn't be growing, and there's a tumor on the end of that tissue where it shouldn't be there, this is obviously then it's in the way of your blood flow. Now, in your heart, you will have blood pooling in there, but only for fractions of a second. It pulls into the heart chamber and then boom, beats out. The beat pushes it out. It pulls into the heart chamber and then boom, the beat pushes it out. With each of these 4 chambers, it operates that way. So if you have a piece of tissue growing from the heart wall into the open cavity where the blood is flowing and where the blood is pooling, if you have from the heart wall the piece of tissue growing into the open cavity, maybe this will demonstrate that better. Piece of tissue growing into the open cavity where the blood is pooling, it's accumulating, blood is accumulating in the chamber. Then as the heart beats and that blood is pumped, forced from that chamber, the extra piece of body tissue growing there, that tumor, would necessarily get in the way of that blood flow. It would get in the way. It would hurt. Think of it this way. You got the chamber of the heart. Boom. Well, that tumor could actually, when the chamber squeezes, maybe it's squeezing onto that tumor, which means then the heart chamber is not giving a full contraction. Maybe then it's only going because that tumor is in the way and it can't give a full contraction. That's one possibility. Maybe the tumor's smaller. The chamber beats, boom. You almost don't have room left for the blood to flow through. So let's say that the tumor's small enough to where the chamber can pump, but the blood is not flowing. So it's either not getting pumped out adequately, and therefore you have leftover blood in there. Not a good thing. Or it gets pumped out, but then the other chamber that's working on pumping the blood in at the same time, boom, that chamber, boom, and it pushes the blood through its valve into this chamber. Hope you're following that. This chamber pushes the blood through its valve, boom, into this chamber. The valve opens, but then you have that tumor there that is taking up volume, taking up space in here. So although this is, boom, pumping the blood in, you don't have as much space in here to hold the blood volume from here. So then what's going to happen? Boom! Well, you don't contain all the blood flow then. One thing that would logically happen is this valve between these chambers is going to start getting damaged, because although it's not supposed to flap this way, the valve is supposed to go one way. It's not supposed to flap this way, but boom! And then the volume can't be contained here. So as this chamber, boom, it's going to push it back up. Or if this chamber doesn't, the blood might kick back, because if this chamber doesn't have enough room by default to hold this blood volume, that's going to get kicked back. The blood's going to get kicked back into this chamber. So you're going to have leftover blood there, or this valve is going to become damaged and faulty because you have a tumor down here. I hope this is making sense. Okay. Non-cancerous primary heart tumors that develop in adults include I really hope I didn't just make a mess of that explanation. Hopefully it was fairly clear. Okay. Non-cancerous primary heart tumors that develop in adults include myxoma. And as I've said before, excuse me for butchering names, these scientific names. Okay. This is the most common non-cancerous primary heart tumor, about 50% of all cases. It needs to be removed through surgery. Okay, yeah, this is a pharmaceutically written piece to prevent serious complications like an embolism. They usually develop in your left atrium. Papillary fibroelastoma. This is the second most common non-cancerous primary heart tumor. It can affect people at any age, but it's usually diagnosed in people over age 60. About 80% of the time, this tumor grows on heart valves. Grows on heart valves between the chambers, usually aortic or mitral valve. Even if you don't have symptoms, your provider will recommend surgery to reduce. No, this provider will not recommend that. Lipoma. This tumor affects people of many different ages. The tumor itself varies in its presentation. It may be small or it may be very large. Is there another choice? They usually develop in your left ventricle, right atrium, or atrial septum, the wall that separates the top chambers of your heart. Hemangioma. Excuse me, sorry. These tumors have been diagnosed across the lifespan from infants to people 65 years old. They usually don't cause symptoms, so they're often diagnosed through tests for other issues. They often occur along with tumors. They often occur along with tumors in your gastrointestinal tract or skin. So to have one of those, you probably have. If you have a tumor in your skin, you're probably going to know it. Otherwise, gastrointestinal tract, you may not know it, and yet unless you have something like a GI bleed. Non-cancerous primary heart tumors that develop in infants and children. Okay, cardiac rhabdomyoma, most common type of heart tumor in infants and children. Growing clusters usually go away on their own without treatment. So as a healthcare provider, I'm going to ask you, if those tumors go away on their own without treatment when the child is small, why doesn't a tumor go away on its own in an adult? Serious question. Think that through. Can you answer it? Serious question. I'm not disagreeing with this. There's a point about it, though. If a child can have a tumor and you don't treat it and you expect it to go away on its own, but adults are by default treated, why? What's the difference? Yes, children are growing, okay, but how many children have tumors that grow and they have bad outcomes? What's the difference? Think about it. What's the difference? Teratoma, this tumor typically develops on the pericardium, the sac that surrounds your child's heart. It can also grow from the base of the major blood vessels connected to the heart. Fibroma, unlike a rhabdomyoma, a fibroma appears as a single tumor. Usually grows within the muscle of your child's ventricles. Did you know the heart is considered a muscle as well? Not just a muscle, but a muscle as well. Your child will likely need surgery to remove this tumor. Okay. Hamartoma, this tumor is called histiocytoid cardiomyopathy or a cell hamartoma. It may affect your child's heart rhythm. Okay, so what makes the one tumor different that we don't treat it and it's expected by default to go away? Whereas other tumors, especially with adults, there's a tumor, we got to treat it. Now, I'm not arguing against treating the tumor. If there's a tumor there, even a non-cancerous one, yeah, let's get rid of it. I'm not arguing against that. I'm not. If there is a growth of tissue in your heart or anywhere else, if there is a growth of tissue that should not be there, that your body, your DNA did not carry the code to make that tissue to begin with. There's a perspective, huh? If that's the case, I see no reason to just say, oh, let's leave the tumor there. It's not hurting anything. I see no reason for that. Let's treat it. Let's get rid of it. Let's shrink. Because you know what? If a tumor has grown somewhere, by default, if a tumor has grown somewhere, that means something in your body is off balance. Something's off. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been there to begin with. Did your DNA that your parents gave you contain within it a code that says, at this place in your body, we have to grow a tumor? Do you think that is in your DNA code? Or did that tumor come as a result of, not laying this at your feet, but did this tumor come as a result of the lifestyle that we live today? Because honestly, we really don't have better choices, than what is available to us in front of us. Unless you live, at this point, I'm going to say unless you live off the planet, on another planet that actually has good soil. Because anywhere on this planet, you get the point. In this society that we live, it's so depleted. There's so many things have been tampered with, manipulated. It opens the door for our bodies to be off balance. It opens the door for tumors and things like this. It opens the door for this. So going back to that question, what do you think the likelihood is that your parents gave you DNA, that within that DNA was a code that says, oh, in your body, I have to grow a tumor in this location at this age? What was that likelihood? You think it was a good likelihood? Hold on just a minute. All right. What do you think that likelihood would be? I think my next person just pulled in. So, we're going to have to come back to this some vicious later, guys. Alright, so my life's a mess right now, y'all. But I keep telling you that, excuse me. Caught between transitions and stuff here. Oh, I put that on the floor. What is okay. I admit I slightly lost track of where I was, so forgive me for that. But whether you have a tumor here, and again, okay, so, as we keep hammering this, a tumor is just an unwanted tissue. Okay, DNA, that's where I was. How likely is it that our parents encoded our body with instructions that says at this point, in this spot in your body, at this age, a tumor, the instruction to make a tumor is given? We would consider our parents cruel for that, wouldn't you? I mean, I would. Well, it's not their choices in their DNA. Do you think our DNA is encoded to kill us? Kind of a loaded question, isn't it? But really, do you think by nature our DNA is coded to cause us health damage, to kill us? Do you think our DNA is actually coded to do that. Well, think about this. If our DNA had the code of a tumor coded into it at a specific point in our body, a specific age, if our DNA had that coded into it, wouldn't that mean that our DNA was actually coded to cause us health damage, possibly death? It's logical, right? See, in my view, I have a real problem with that idea. A real problem with it. Serious, actually, problem with that idea, in my view. Think about this. If our ancestors coded that kind of health, that kind of health programming into us, then it would be logical that their ancestors programmed that into them, right? And if their ancestors programmed that into them, how did they make it to produce us? See, I have a serious problem with that whole theory. You can't prove it's true. It's a theory. You can't prove it's true. By default, our ancestors lived the best they could, in the best health they could, and with what they had and what they knew at the time, to produce their offspring, to keep them coming down generations to produce us. Therefore, the genetics, the DNA, could not have been, follow this, could not have been coded to, by default, produce bad health conditions in us. Through the genetics, the DNA down through the lineage, our DNA could not, by default, be coded to cause us health conditions. Now, granted, if our parents took in something from the society that they grew up in, if they took in something that then caused the health conditions in theirs, that could have changed their genetics, which then they passed on to you. But genetics at the core, the DNA at the core, could not work that way. Otherwise, the human race would have already gone out of existence. If it worked that way, the race would have already gone out of existence. We wouldn't be here. So by default, the DNA, the genetics, are not coded for us to have these adverse health conditions. Therefore, to think that your DNA, your genetics is encoded to say in this organ or in this spot in your body at this age, you're going to have a tumor. No. The tumor comes about because something triggered the body to produce body tissue that wasn't naturally there in whatever spot it is. So then the question is, what triggered that tumor? What triggered the body to signal extra tissue to grow in that place? What triggered that? Yes, this would be considered the root cause. What triggered that tumor to be growing there? Then, what triggered it? There had to be a trigger. There had to be. So in this office, that is what we're going to do. We're going to search for, in your life, in your body, what was that trigger? What was it? The closer we can get to that trigger, the better we're going to be able to do your specific treatment, because your treatment, again, as always with anybody, your treatment is individual. Your treatment is individual to your individual biology, your individual health conditions. The treatment has to be specific to you. That's our job here. That's our mission here. Our race. Because yes, for me, I consider it a race. Our race, I don't have all the time in the world to find the trigger of your tumor. I don't have all the time in the world, and honestly, neither do you. We have a limited amount of time, therefore my race is to find your trigger. If you have a tumor, what triggered that tumor, so that we can treat that, so we can address that and treat it, bring you back in from that health condition that you're fighting. That is my race. Yes, I do. I consider it a race. I'm racing against time, both of our time, and against your current health condition, because you're going to be at a different stage of health condition for whatever's going on. I'm racing against time. I'm racing against your specific health condition. Okay? Those are two factors that I face each day that we're working with this. Once we accomplish that, we start treating your specific health condition. And I promise you, we're going to search until we figure out for you what the trigger is. We're going to search. We're going to dig until we figure out for you what the trigger was, and therefore how we treat that specific trigger and your health condition. Because we can shrink a tumor. With herbs, we can shrink a tumor. Can it come back? Well, if we haven't addressed the root cause, then yeah, unfortunately it could. Okay, so that is my job, our mission. Let's get away from the doom and gloom. So, I mean, I guess it's not really doom and gloom because I'm telling you we can treat it. So it's not doom and gloom. It's not a death sentence. It's not. Find us at justsimplyholistic.com. Download our intake papers. Get them back to us. Let us review your intake papers. Find our Simply Holistic office. Get yourself in here. Let us review your intake papers. Let us review your health conditions. Let us see what your individual specific treatment plan needs to be. Work with us on that. Go through our gamut of testing. Yeah, I forgot to say that. Go through our gamut of testing, which helps us to pinpoint your health condition and trigger. With that said, we look forward to seeing and serving you and any tumors you may have